So, all is well.
Things are good. I'm very busy with work, which is a good thing. But like I like I make sure I do my practices every morning. Just to get steady. And I've been doing this. I do I do a regular meditation, and then I try to do like this pranayama breathing that goes with it. So it's good. It's good
Okay. So you know that pranayama is like an umbrella
for breathing.
for,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, for any kind of breath practice. Like meditation is an umbrella. So it's similar. Sometimes people will say, "Well, I'm doing pranayama." It's like, well, good for you. It's like, what kind are you doing? Well, no, I'm doing pranayama.
Yeah.
Or people say, I do Kundalini yoga. It's like, well, I know there's sort of a style or maybe even a brand called Kundalini yoga, but a lot of people practice Kundalini yoga in the sense that the Kundalini is a Sanskrit name for this dormant spiritual energy that we're all walking around with, and it can be awakened through the practices. It can be awakened through mantras. It can be awakened through contact with the master. Some people are born with it awakened. So it just always amuses me. Yeah.
Oh, it is very funny. To be more specific, it's an equal breathing tantric practice.
Okay.
So tantra yoga.
Tantra's another one. Tantra's another one of those.
But
Yeah.
specifically, it's an equal breathing practice. It's more specific, I guess.
Okay. So you breathe in and out to the same count, or do you not count?
You breathe in and out, but you're restricting the air through your by holding your esophagus. So it's slow. It's slow. It's a slower count. It's a slower count
So you physically hold it, or you're holding it internally?
internally. There's another way of doing it where you stick your tongue in the back of your neck, at your where the throat, where the esophagus starts, and that it just makes the count much longer. So yeah,
So the idea is to lengthen the breath, to
exactly.
elongate the breath. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are all kinds of mudras. So, there's a mudra where you put your tongue up here behind your front teeth, up to the roof of your mouth, right behind and above, like up there. And that's what you're supposed to do when you do the 4-7-8 breath, which a lot of people are doing. In
Mm.
fact, do you know the breath? Did we ever talk about it? The four
No,
seven
no,
eight.
no, no.
Okay. So this is an amusing story. So I was walking around last week, and now we have all these, I think of them as kiosks. Now we have all these electronic sort of phone stations around the city where you
Mm-hmm.
can like plug in your phone. And they have like ads, and they have sayings, and they have photos. And I was walking by one last week, and it said something like, if you need to relax, inhale for 4, hold the breath for 7, and breathe out for 8. That's 4-7-8 breath. So, so I was on this little thing, and I thought, okay, that's good. I was taught by someone who taught with Andrew Weil, Dr. Andrew Weil, and when he was researching a book on centenarians, people who live till 100 or more, he discovered that, at least in one place, one of the things that people felt kept them not only alive, but thriving in old age, like in their 90s or even over 100, was that, first of all, they were treated with respect in their culture. And also, everybody did this breath. And I haven't seen any data. So I think the hypothesis is that this breathing balances the two brain hemispheres. But what we do know is, like, equal breath is fine, but we also know that if the out breath is twice as long as the in breath, you do get kind of a deeper breath, and some people get a deeper relaxation. Now, like you don't do breathing practice necessarily for relaxation. I do all these practices like to go deeper with myself, to bring all that direct experience into my life as strength, as joy, as wisdom, all of that. But sometimes it's nice to just sort of calm the breath down. But when that breath was taught, when he actually taught me that breath after teaching with Dr. Wells, what you're really supposed to do is put your tongue up here behind your teeth and breathe in through your nose for 4, hold the breath for 7, and when you breathe out through your mouth, and because your tongue's up there, your out breath sounds like it's like a whoosh.
Right.
So that whole package is that breath. It's not just the counting. It's how you actually practice the breath, how you breathe out and where your tongue is and all of that. Now, if you can't keep your tongue there, and some people can't, you can just purse your lips and breathe out. But the point is that so many of these practices start getting homogenized the further away they get from the direct source.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to find teachers and colleagues and communities that are connected to really the source, so that people aren't just kind of saying, oh, well, I do this running. I'm a meditation teacher. I took a 2-week course and got a certificate.
Right.
Have we ever talked to you about the soup of the soup? You know the story?
No.
Okay. So in the Near East, there's a sort of everyman character called Sheikh Nasruddin. And Sheikh Nasruddin is kind of, it's like in our folklore, it's like the wise men of Helm. He's a fool. But he's the bearer of wisdom. So Sheikh Nasruddin made a duck soup, and his family loved it. And then his next door neighbor comes and tastes it, and he says, oh, this is great duck soup. I'm going to go tell my wife. So Nasruddin looks at the pot of soup, and there's not that much soup left. So he had some water. And the neighbor's wife comes by, and she also his neighbor, and she tastes the soup. She says, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'll tell my friend. So she tells her friend comes in, he looks down, and he sees that there's less and less soup. So he keeps adding water. And finally, somebody comes and tastes the soup. They keep passing this along, word of mouth. And somebody comes and tastes it and says, this soup tastes like water. And Nasruddin says, well, we had the soup, and the neighbor had the soup of the soup, and their friend had the soup of the soup of the soup, and you had the soup of the soup of the soup of the soup. So it's like that's what happens to the teachings when they get further away from their source, which doesn't mean that you can't teach them outside their indigenous culture. I know some people might have some issues with that, and it depends on what it is, because some of these great beings came from the East specifically to share these teachings and practices with us. So, it's not like cultural appropriation in that context. But, so we studied with a master of meditation, and some people have studied with us, and then some people may study with them, and some people may study with their students. And if they're all teaching in the direct line of the teaching practices, which is why you and I and others, it's so important to us that the teachings be authentic. It doesn't mean you can't, massage them a little bit so that they're palatable to people in our culture, but that they retain their essence, because otherwise, it's the soup of the soup of the soup.
Right, right.
And there's nothing to them. And I've been talking with a lot of other teachers, Monique and I, and Sheila and I, and others. We're somewhat aghast that somebody can sign up, somebody who's not a meditator or a very new meditator can sign up and take a course and become a meditation teacher and then go, hang their shingle and be a meditation teacher. Because to me, that's like taking a 6-week program and getting a medical license. I mean, maybe the risk isn't the same, but sometimes the risk might be the same, because people come to meditation because they need and want to turn within. They don't know how, or they need something. And somebody said to them, "Oh, you should meditate." So, or in the case of people like me and Monique who work out of medical practices or medical groups and associations, that sort of a natural for people to come and study with us, but we want to make sure that the people that are coming get what they come for. So it's always amused me when people talk about the breath. I know that you're a serious seeker, and I know that what you're getting is authentic. But we live in this sort of marketplace culture where I've heard people call some types of meditation like the McDonald's meditation or meditation light, mysticism light. So there's nothing light about it.
Right.
It's serious. But people come for what they come for, and we've talked about this. But when I started teaching in Connecticut, we started leading these groups, and we would ask people what they came for. And we went around the room, this one sort of beginner class, and everybody was stressed. Everybody was anxious. One person was grieving a loss. One person had lost a job. Somebody was getting divorced. A couple of people were coping with chronic illness, and they were suffering. And they were coming to relieve their suffering. And I don't know if I should keep saying this over and over again, like maybe I told you the story before, but at the end of the class, we give them a very simple practice to take home with them. Just to sit for a few minutes, notice your breath, if thoughts come up, feelings come up, physical sensations come up, just resettle your awareness onto your breath. And ideally, do it every day. But if you can't do it every day, do it when you can do it. So we came back the next week, and no one had done it.
Right.
And everyone was feeling more stressed, and now they were mad at themselves, and they were, judgmental and all of that. So we went around the conversation, and came back to me, and I said, well, I don't meditate to relieve my stress. I don't meditate to calm down my anxiety. I meditate to uplift my life, to bring more meaning and purpose into every day, and ideally every moment that I'm alive. And the next week, every single person meditated. And they said that they did because of what I said. Because that's what people want. They come for what they come for. They come to sleep better. They come to calm down. They come because they're so stressed they can barely manage their lives. And they get help for that. That isn't the point. The point is to enrich our living, to make it more joyous,
right?
To make it more rich. And so, you do it. So I always say, the door is open. Like, whenever you're here, but let's call it what it is. This is a capacity to change. and transform your life. This simple practice has a capacity to do that. And people want that. That is what people want. And so I think our task is to offer that authentically. I've been in trainings with people teaching a practice that they don't practice. Like, I would never do that. Never, ever. People have come to me and said, a certain Buddhist practice, where I teach it to them. It's like, no, I don't practice that. I can send you to someone who does practice it.
Right.
Who's a good, authentic teacher of that practice. But, it ain't me. Hey, it ain't me, babe. So, anyway, there's some of the things that come up in this this wacky culture that we're in, and that's why I refuse to call it a technique. It's not a technique. It's not like a trick. Like, we're not going to trick the nervous system. It's practice.
Right.
And the more you practice it, the more you grow. And that's not quantitative to me. It doesn't matter like how much time you put in. It really doesn't. I know there's a lot of systems that insist on that, and the discipline is fine for people who are sort of learning to swim in this pond, so to speak. But to me, it's like we're swimming in the ocean. Get wet. Nothing bad's going to happen.
Right.
Anyway. So
last week we talked about the heart.
I do talk about the heart. Yes.
And what I found interesting is that when you mentioned that, so my process of meditating is a lot of time it stays in the brain, and once you mentioned that, it started to make sense, because in times when I've been, when I had my big shift, let's call it, after 2 years, when people started noticing me different, they're like, oh wow, you really have some vibe towards you. You have some energy that's coming from you. One of the things I found was really interesting was I felt I didn't have words to explain it, but it was coming from the heart. You're coming from a place of real, you're holding space for people, not because they need to vent, so to speak, but you're holding space from a heart space rather than a brainwave space where you can, just let it out. Just complain how the guy online was pissing you off, right? Which is not necessarily what you want to do, but coming from a real deep space where you're giving up people the opportunity to share their pain or their confusion towards what's going on in the cosmos and the world, and it's I never had words for it, which was very when you said it, it all of a sudden made sense, because that's what you're actually doing. You're coming from a place where I'm holding the energy in my space. And then as I go through, it's just this calmer space where it's like, it took me until like, there's this concept that's very hard for me, which is, which was very hard. I've recently gotten over it, but it's the idea that you love your fellow man, everything, right? You love everybody, which is a very hard concept, because like for a long time, and even now, sometimes I don't really care, but it's not that I'm just not engaged with them is really what it comes down to, but now I understand that when I'm meeting somebody, you're coming from a place that this person matters. And it's a much easier place to come from than, well, that guy pissed me off, So the understanding of coming from your heart made more sense once you actually shared what it is that that's what you're actually doing. So that was really, really helpful. Because all of a sudden now I have words for it. Why am I doing these actions? Why am I being present, being available, and helping people? And it's and not just helping people in like, you know, but doing my work the way I do it. It's coming from a place of actual, not egoism, but I want to do a good job because I want to do a good job.
It's coming from a place of service.
Right.
Yes, it's your job, it's your business, but also your business is about helping people find a home. That's important. It's not just a transaction. It is a transaction. That's not all it is. What's significant to me, Matthew, is not just what you were feeling so much as that the people around you started to notice that you were different. It's like you were emanating a glow, and people could see and feel that. It's tangible. And we feel it, like you said, you know, like big shift, like you felt it, but also other people noticed it. Other people go, something's going on.
Right. Right.
And then sometimes people want that. Sometimes people go, good for you. I'll go do something else. You know? But yeah, so it is. I think it's so important in any kind of practice to engage the mind and the heart. You know, I think I might have said this, but you know, I asked people that I'm close to and that I've taught with, who were telling me that I had a method. I said, you know, what's my methodology? Do I have a methodology? Oh, you have a methodology when you teach meditation. It's like, what is it? Because for me, it's just organic. I just do what I do, you know? And the first thing that they said separately wasn't like a joint conversation. These were people talking to me, different moments, people who know me well, and people who have taught with me and around me. And they both said, you always talk about the heart. You always talk about the heart. It's not the only thing you do. You always talk. And so I think for me, like you know, the language to describe your experience, that's the direct experience, is that it's in your heart. One of the things that I find so interesting, if you're looking at this energetically, so if you're looking at, you know, the chakra system, so that we have these major energy centers in the energy body corresponding to the physical body, and starts at the base of the spine. There are 7 of them. And it's understood that the lower, so-called lower chakras help us to manifest more on the earth plane. They are physical, more physically based. You know, like if you're feeling ungrounded, like what you might want to do is sort of center or ground your physical body by pushing into the floor, or by, you know, being aware of your lower body, being on the earth plane, so to speak. And then up here, so from the throat, you have this, I'll just go through it. So you have the root chakra, which is at the base of your spine. Then you have a chakra that is sort of just below the navel. And then there's the solar plexus, which is sometimes called the power chakra. And then so those are the 3 sort of lower physical plane chakras. I mean, everything operates all the time. The so-called higher chakras are the throat, which rules communication, the third eye, which is where our intuitive sense is, right here above and between the eyebrows. And then the top of the head, crown chakra, which is understood to be the seat of enlightenment. So who's in the middle? What's the bridge between the physical and the metaphysical? Your heart. It's poetic.
Right.
It keeps us connected. Keeps us connected to our higher consciousness and to the world at the same time. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And I don't think the chakra system was invented. It was discovered because it's present. And it's understood that that's where the love is. That's where the devotion is. That's where the compassion is. So a few moments ago, you raised one of the most compelling questions, spiritually, culturally, in life. One of the most compelling questions is, well, do I really want to love everybody? You know, there's some people I can think of who seem to be really evil. Do I have to love that person? So there are various ways to parse the answers to that question. One is, well, it depends on what you call love. And it depends on what you call that person, how you relate to that person as a person. So compassion is love. Loving that person's potential to be kind, to be generous, to be thoughtful, to be righteous, even if that's not how they're showing up in the world. So we see that they have that same pure consciousness, their divinity, that potential within them, even if that's not what they're offering the world. So in a way, it keeps the door open to understanding. And it doesn't mean that everybody gets a free pass either. Similarly, there's a great misunderstanding about what forgiveness is. Forgiveness doesn't mean anything goes. Forgiveness doesn't mean, oh, well, it's okay that you did this horrible thing. It's not okay. It had an impact. Might continue to happen. But what it means energetically is, as an example, so whatever someone did to me, there's a bond there between me and that person. If I hold it as a grudge, if I hold it as a hurt, if I start fantasizing about vengeance or hoping something horrible happens to that person, then I'm still caught. I'm caught there. I'm caught in that hurt. I'm caught in that suffering. I'm caught in that rage. Can I release that and understand that it isn't my job to make that right? I can make it right for me, or if someone else is involved and I'll try to make it right for that person. So one of the really interesting things in both the Jewish faith, but also in Jewish mysticism, is this concept of midat hadin and midat harachamim. So on one hand, you have justice, and on the other hand, you have mercy or compassion. That people get held into account. And I don't have to walk around in my life being ticked off, feeling sorry for myself. I can let that go. I can release that. To me, that's what forgiveness practices. It's the release of that energetic bond that holds us together through the hurt or through the violation or through the violence. It's not dismissing it as real. And it's not saying, well, you know, I'm okay. I'm going to put a smile on my face anyway. No, it's not that. It's given all of that. How can I be in the world? What do I need? So maybe what comes out of that is maybe I mistrust people more in the sense of I might not take as many chances with people if someone has done something horrible to me. I might be more alert. Or I might be more discriminated. And it's funny because in this passage, at this journey, in this time, in the Hebrew calendar, we're moving out of Passover, which is liberation. We're moving toward Shavuot, which is revelation. And in the 7 weeks in between, we're counting the Omer. So the Omer is a grain offering. But mystically, what we do is we look at, the Kabbalists do this, we look at each of the weeks as embodying one of these divine virtues, one of these qualities and attributes. And what's the first one? Chesed, which is translated by King James as loving kindness. Kindness, love, generosity, grace, that's where we start. And then each day in each of those 7 weeks is assigned one of those sefirot or qualities connected to the weekly. So the first one is chesed shebachesed, kindness in kindness. But the next one, and the second week, is gevurah. And gevurah is justice. It literally means power or might. Gibor, it's a hero. So these two come together. You've got, kindness, and you've got discipline. No, you can't get away with it. Sometimes it seems like people do, and maybe they do. But you can put up boundaries. You can be kind, but not get walked all over. So there's this balance of these pairs of opposites. And they exist everywhere in the universe. And how I understand them from an energetic point of view is that they travel together. So you have this ancient teaching in many traditions, as above, so below. It's in the Upanishads, it's in Kabbalah. I'm guessing, I don't know every Western culture that ever existed, but I'm guessing it's pretty much everywhere. You've got justice and mercy, you've got giving and receiving. And sometimes it feels like the pendulum is swinging from one to the other, happy and sad. You have all these opposites, attachment and aversion. It's like, oh, I really want that. I really hate that. They travel together. So I love this teaching from Rabbi Nachman Breslov, who says, where's the true peace? The true peace is the peace between opposites. And if you image the swing of the pendulum, in front of you, where's the center? Now, if you could see my hand going, from one side to another. It's like the pendulum. So where's the center? It's there. That's the center. That's the true peace. It's your heart. So the more you look at this from all these different perspectives, through all these different lenses, what have you got? You've got the mind, you've got the heart, you've got the body, you've got the community, you've got this awareness. And that the one thing that we all agree on, everybody agrees on this. The scientists agree, the mystics agree, people of all traditions agree that wherever your awareness is, that's what your experience is going to be.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Right, and it's articulated in all these different ways. So Nathanael Braslev says, you are where your thoughts are. So make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. I think it's in the Yoga Vasishta, ancient text says, what you think about is what you become. So if we think about that, if we address that from what you're raising, from the standpoint of the heart, it's not just like cognitive what you think about. It's like if you're walking around being pissed off at somebody, or being angry at yourself, or being frustrated, and you're mulling that over and ruminating on that. That's your life experience. And if you take a moment to go to the breath, or to go to an image, or to let go of it, even if that's like physically letting go of it, that becomes your experience. You release that. And then what arises? What takes its place? That's your experience. You know, it's common sense. But so much of our training is to hang on to what we're feeling and express it. Well, I just have to tell you how I feel, because it's how I feel. Someone said it to me once, more than once, different people. But this one time someone said it to me and said, I just have to tell you how I feel because it's how I feel. And I said, why? Like, why do you have to tell me that? Because what that does is it keeps you feeling it. Or you're sort of giving it to me, so to speak. Venting, dumping, complaining. You don't have to express the way you feel. You can, but you can also transmute it. That's the energetic process of transmutation, because understanding that what is a thought? What is a feeling? What are they? They're energy. They're consciousness in a particular form, often in a particularly dense and contracted form. So can I recycle? Can I recycle that energy back into consciousness, back into the cosmos? Can I transmute that? Can I change the energetic? Can I let go of it? Which changes everything. I don't think Ezra will mind my saying this, but when he was 12, we got him a punching bag. We thought, well, yeah, I mean, what would we do? We would meditate. But he's like this 12-year-old kid with all this energy. He's not going to sit still and meditate. So we put him a punching bag in his bedroom. He'd come out, from school. He'd come home, and he'd go into his room, and he'd release whatever he needed to release from the day. The point is that we can do that. It's not that we have to do it that way, but that we can do it in all kinds of ways, and respecting all those ways. So one of the things that excited me when I started teaching this Change Your Brain with Meditation workshop was finding the research, finding the data that nearly every kind of meditation you could actually think of affected the brain and the nervous system in a beneficial way. Whether it was a physical meditation like Qigong or yoga or Tai Chi, or whether it was loving kindness, like sort of a heart-based meditation, or whether it was mantra-based, or whether it was mindfulness in the sense of, I'm going to sit here and notice everything that comes up within me and around me, and I'm going to be accepting and welcoming. Or a breath meditation, or a concentrative meditation, where I'm focusing the mind on something, an object, a sound, an image. The flame of a candle. But at the end of the day, they all bring us where we want to be. And of course, because we're kind of mind-centric in our culture, we think that it's bringing us to the mind. Really, the mind and the senses and the awareness is also taking us into the heart. We're not thrown out the mind. I know a meditation teacher who said, really we should call it mindlessness. Because we're not like following the mind. Yeah, goes here and right goes there. But ultimately, that it connects the mind, and that we're living our lives in all these realms at the same time. So, who's driving the bus? Is it our thoughts? Is it the people around us? Is it our environment? Is it our emotions? Is it our body? Or is it us? And who are we anyway? Right? So the major contemplative question is, who am I? And if you ask that question and sit with that question, and one of the ways that I love to do self-inquiry and contemplation, self-inquiry being a style or a type of contemplation. Contemplation is sitting with something. It could be a concept. It could be a concept, a principle, an issue, an event, a practice, a question. So if I ask myself a question, we just simply call that self-inquiry. If I ask myself the question, who am I? And I take a little notebook and I start spooling out everything that comes to my mind. So we're going to start up here in the mind. Who am I? So when I do it, and I've done it many, 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 many times, I'm male, I'm a husband, I'm a father, Jewish, I identify my work, and all of those things. And I spool all that out. And sometimes, because I've been doing it a while, sometimes in that spooling out, some of the deeper ways of identifying myself come up. But generally what you do is you get all that out, and it could be in words, it could be in images, doesn't really matter. And then you close your eyes, you drop into the space of your heart, and you ask yourself, who am I? And you let that answer bubble up from within yourself. And the same practice the same contemplative method, so to speak, can apply to any question, big or small. Could be a big question like, who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Sometimes people say, I want to change careers, but I don't really know what I want to do. Well, I'll do this. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And spill it all out. And then close your eyes, drop in your heart, and ask the question again.
So a lot of stuff comes up. It's like a lot, just like bubbles really quickly.
Ever?
Yeah, I gotta do that when I have more time to do it and write it down afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. And what's important to recognize is that it's bubbling up from within you.
Right.
It's your wisdom. It's your heart. It's your dharma. It's your purpose. And you can even ask it about a question. Like, should I move here or should I move there? You can ask it about any question. I find it particularly profound asking those big questions. Like, is there something I need to do? Is there something I should be doing? Once I identify what my purpose is, why I'm here, I can sit with the question of, am I living it? Am I doing it? How can I be more aligned with it? So there are all kinds of ways to align with our purpose and to get back on the path if we feel like we're kind of falling by the wayside, which sometimes we do. That's part of the spiritual quest. Sometimes we feel like, oh God, like really? I don't feel so uplifted at this moment. Now I do at this moment, but sometimes we have that thought. And so to sit with it, it's like, oh, what do I need? How do I need to be? Or what do I need to do? Or what do I need to not do? And I think what happens, the more contemplative we are, the more natural and organic it is. So we don't necessarily have to sit and make practice of it, but that it becomes a habit. Just like it's great if you can sit and do your meditation practice for the allotted time, but there may be days in which that's harder to do. So what can you do since you're used to going inside? Can you just shift inside? Can you click inside? Can you click your awareness? Can you glide your awareness within for a moment? So that's what happens when we contemplate. And one of the things that is crucial to me in terms of spiritual development is it's not all meditation, but it's finding the meaning and the purpose, not just of the practices, but also of our lives. Like, honestly, why are we here? And so in my own life, I had a career as a journalist in the health world. And I was very clear that my purpose was to help people in different kinds of ways. But I was always teaching meditation. And then about 15 years ago or so, I was finding myself sitting in front of a computer, writing, and I thought, well, it would be really nice to help people directly. to interact with them and to work with them more directly, even though I was occasionally teaching meditation workshop or a class. So I changed my career. Once in a while, I would write something, and now I'm working on some writing, including writing about the practices. But at a certain point, it didn't feel like it was fulfilling my purpose to keep doing that. And also it felt like it was too easy for me, that I could just sit down and knock off a summary of a research report. So I did some trainings and I connected with people in a medical practice, and I started working there and started working directly with people and started working with colleagues. And it began to feel like, yeah, that's what I'm here to do. I'm not dismissing anything I did up to that point, but you reach a point where you kind of go, it's the Peggy Lee song, is that all there is? Which is one of the reasons people come to meditation, because they're looking at their lives and they go, is this it? Isn't there more? And yeah, there's more. There's always more. And so I think one of the things that's coming through in this conversation is that the more we contemplate, the more deeply we contemplate, the more we really sit with our questions and our experiences and our concepts and our decisions, the more we contemplate them, our relationships, the richer our life experiences. It helps us align ourselves. And sometimes I feel like people are given, almost prescriptively, people are given meditation to do. And I'm happy. I'm happy if everybody meditates. I mean, yeah, makes me happy. But, I go to this restaurant where I go there frequently because I like sitting there and writing there. And so I'm on a first name basis. People that work there and the guy who runs it. And last week, it was quiet. The kitchen was closed for a couple of hours. And we're sitting and talking. And he says, so like, what do you do? And I start talking about my work and I teach meditation. He says, oh, I've been meditating for 20 years. And he said, sometimes business gets so crazy. I just go in my office and I close the door and I meditate. And it made me so happy because he has that capacity. Well, we all have that capacity. He has the ability, it's the skill, it's the knowledge that it's something he can do. I've worked in places where people screamed at each other. And I would pray that they would stumble into meditation somewhere in their lives. Because we all need it, because it's our natural state. But some of these other practices, particularly contemplation, of really sitting and asking and listening and smiling, is also a life-changing, life-affirming practice. And I think it's really important to share that with people. And one of the things that I love about this practice that I just shared with you, which is my friend and colleague, Joel Evans, doctor in Stamford, Connecticut, that I've worked with for many years now. Joel calls it the drop down. So you start in your mind, drop down your awareness into your heart, which I love. So you start kind of in the mental and then you move into the heart space. And as you were saying, often when you're sitting in your heart and ask the same simple question, and it's helpful if it is a simple question, the answers sometimes just like come up like a buoy in the water. They just let it go rise. And sometimes what comes up, people say, oh, nothing's happening. Well, what's coming up is stillness. What's coming up is silence. And can you sit with that silence? Because sometimes there's nothing to do. But there's always a way to be. You know, we're always about, well, what are you going to do next? So it's like, well, what are you going to do? But how are you going to be? How are you going to be with this thing that happened or didn't happen? How can we be with that? And so we can ask ourselves that question. We can ask the universe that question. And we can always do that. It's always available. So it's kind of like the hidden practice. But I think we should open the door, open the windows. Hey, everybody, this is something you can do. It'll change your life. It'll reset. It'll realign. It'll restore your daily experience of your own true nature and your life path.
All right.
So that was fun.
Yeah. So I guess we'll text about next week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was really, I mean, that was really good.
It was.
I've done meditation. I've done meditations where we ask questions. What's most important thing in your mind right now and life right now? Things come up that you don't realize what you try to navigate it, and then it doesn't, just kind of, try to control it, and then other things start popping up.
Well, those are contemplative meditations where you're kind of combining the practice, because there aren't really these boundaries, but it's great to do that. To like look at your mind. Oh, that's what my mind is. Where's my mind right now? Hello, where are you? Where's my heart right now? Where am I? When people would say, my mind, my body, you're affirming that you're not your mind and you're not your body. Right. So who are you? And that's food for contemplation.
Absolutely.
So have a beautiful day.
You too. Have a good Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos, and we'll talk some more.
Yeah. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Take good care.
Bye.
Bye.